In 753 BC, according to legend, a man named Romulus stood on a hill, drew a line in the dirt, and said, "This is Rome." Then he killed his brother for stepping over it. This is, historians agree, a very on-brand way to start the Roman Empire. The real story is slightly less dramatic but considerably more interesting. Rome started as a small farming settlement on the banks of the Tiber River in central Italy. 7 hills. A few thousand people. An absolutely enormous ambition. The early Romans lived under kings, which they tolerated for about 250 years before getting tired of it and inventing the Republic. The Roman Republic was a system of elected officials, 2 consuls at the top, a senate below them, and the unspoken understanding that the senate actually ran everything. This worked remarkably well for about 500 years, which by the standards of human governments is an astonishing run. What made Rome different was the army. The Roman legion was the most disciplined, most organized, most devastatingly effective fighting force the ancient world had ever seen. They did not fight in mobs. They fought in formation. They trained constantly. They built their own roads so they could march faster. They built their own camps every single night. They were, essentially, a conquering machine with very good logistics. Italy fell first. Then came the Punic Wars, 3 brutal conflicts against Carthage, the other great power of the Mediterranean. Carthage had a general named Hannibal, who crossed the Alps with war elephants, marched into Italy, and won virtually every battle he fought. The Romans lost. And lost again. And kept going. After 17 years of Hannibal running around their country winning battles, the Romans outmaneuvered him diplomatically, attacked Carthage directly, and eventually won. Then they destroyed Carthage completely. Burned it to the ground, salted the earth, sold the population into slavery. The Roman Senate had spent years debating this decision. The answer was always the same: Carthage must be destroyed. So they destroyed it. This is the thing about Rome, they were very good at losing and still winning. By the 1st century BC, the Republic was under strain. The empire had gotten too big for its political system. Generals were becoming more powerful than senators. And then came Julius Caesar. Caesar was a military genius, a political operator, and a man with absolutely no interest in sharing power. He conquered Gaul, modern-day France, in 8 years. He wrote his own account of it, partly to impress Rome, partly to control the narrative. He crossed the Rubicon River with his army, which was illegal and meant civil war. He won. He became dictator. Then, on the Ides of March in 44 BC, 23 senators stabbed him to death in the theater of Pompey, which suggests that calling it the Senate was increasingly aspirational. Caesar's adopted son Octavian eventually won the civil war that followed, renamed himself Augustus, and became Rome's first emperor. He was careful not to call himself king. The Romans had strong feelings about kings. He called himself the first citizen. Everyone understood what it actually meant. Under Augustus and his successors, Rome entered what historians call the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. 200 years of relative stability. The empire stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine to the Sahara. 70 million people lived under Roman rule. Roads connected every corner of the empire. Aqueducts brought clean water to cities. The Colosseum held 50,000 spectators watching gladiators kill each other, which the Romans called entertainment and did not see a contradiction in this. At its peak, the Roman Empire controlled 2 million square miles of territory. It was the largest and most sophisticated empire the Western world had ever seen. Then it started to fall apart. This took about 300 years, which tells you something about how well built it was. The problems were structural. The empire was too large to govern effectively. The currency was being debased, less silver in each coin, which caused inflation. The army had grown so large that it was bankrupting the treasury. And the borders were under constant pressure from people who wanted in. In the 3rd century AD, the empire went through 26 emperors in 50 years. Most of them died violently. In 285 AD, Emperor Diocletian split the empire into east and west on the theory that two halves might be easier to manage. He was right, in a way. The western half collapsed first. Wave after wave of Germanic tribes crossed the borders. The Visigoths sacked Rome in 410 AD, which shocked everyone. Rome had not been sacked in 800 years. The Vandals sacked it again in 455 AD. In 476 AD, the last Western emperor, a teenager named Romulus Augustus, yes, named after the founder, was deposed by a barbarian chieftain named Odoacer, who did not even bother to name a replacement. The Western Roman Empire was over. 1,229 years after Romulus drew his line in the dirt. The eastern half, which you probably know as the Byzantine Empire, they called it Rome right up until 1453, when the Ottomans took Constantinople, lasted another 1,000 years. Rome's legacy is almost impossible to overstate. The legal systems of most of Europe are built on Roman law. The Romance languages, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, are all evolved from Latin. The Catholic Church used Roman administrative structures as its model. The word emperor comes from the Latin imperator. The word republic comes from residential publica. The word capital, the word senate, the word constitution, the word census, all Latin. When you say the fall of Rome was a big deal, you are underselling it. Historians are still arguing about exactly why it fell. The short answer is, everything, all at once, over 300 years. And that is the Roman Empire. The Blunt Historian. History Explained. No fluff.